Hello everyone and welcome to lesson 7.3B. I've entitled this video, Federalist versus Anti-Federalist. This will cover pages 198 to 199. Debate and adoption. Before the Constitution could go into effect, 9 states had to ratify or approve it. Americans debated the arguments for and against the Constitution in newspapers, at meetings, and in everyday conversations. Federalist and Anti-Federalist. People who supported the new Constitution were called Federalists. They took this name to stress that the Constitution would create a system of federalism, a government in which power is divided between the national government and the states. Among them were George Washington and Benjamin Franklin. James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and John Jay wrote a series of essays explaining and defending the Constitution. Called the Federalist Papers, these essays were later published in newspapers and sent to delegates at state conventions. They made a powerful argument in favor of ratification. Question number 1. How many states were required to ratify the Constitution for it to go into effect? 9 of the 13 states. Question 2. Who were the Federalists? The Federalists were the group of people who believed in the Constitution and they wanted to see that government get passed. Question 3. Why did they take the name of Federalist? Well, they wanted to stress that the Constitution would create a system of federalism, that is, the sharing of power between the states and the federal government, and they believed that was going to make our country much stronger. Question 4. Who were 5 founding fathers who were Federalists? Try to say that 5 times fast. The 5 founding fathers that were famous for being Federalists were George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and John Jay. Question 5. What did the Federalist Papers do? The Federalist Papers were a series of essays that explained and defended the Constitution. So it was an informational thing, but also a little bit of propaganda, trying to convince people that this was a good thing for our country. And that leads us to number 6. What was the main goal of the Federalist Papers? The main goal of the Federalist Papers was to convince the delegates at these state conventions that they should vote in favor of the new Constitution. Those who opposed the Constitution were called Anti-Federalist. They wrote their own essays, which later came to be known as the Anti-Federalist Papers. Anti-Federalists argued that a strong national government would take away liberties Americans had fought for in the American Revolution. They warned that the government would ignore the will of the states and favor the wealthy few over the common people. Anti-Federalists favored local government that was controlled more closely by the people. Question number 7. What view did the Anti-Federalists take? Their view was they were opposed to adopting the new Constitution. Question 8. Why were the Anti-Federalists afraid of a strong national government? They were concerned, they were afraid that this strong national government would take away the freedoms, the liberties that Americans had fought for in the American Revolution. Question 9. What were 2 more reasons why the Anti-Federalists were opposed to the Constitution? 1, they were worried that the government would ignore the will of the states, and 2, they were afraid that the new powerful federal government would favor the wealthy few over the average common people. Question 10. Who were 3 famous founding fathers who were anti-federalist? Well, they are pictured here on the right. George Mason, Patrick Henry, and Sam Adams. A Bill of Rights. The strongest criticism of the Constitution may have been that it lacked a Bill of Rights to protect individual freedoms. Several state conventions announced that they would not ratify it unless a Bill of Rights was included. George Mason expressed the problem, primary source from the Objections to this Constitution of Government, September 1787. There is not a Declaration of Rights, and the laws of the general government being paramount to the laws and constitutions of the several states, the Declaration of Rights in the separate states are not security. Question number 11. What was the biggest criticism the Anti-Federalists had about the Constitution? That it lacked a Bill of Rights to protect the individual freedoms of the people. Ratifying the Constitution. On December 7, 1787, Delaware became the first state to approve the Constitution. By June 21st of 1788, the 9th state, New Hampshire, ratified it. In theory, this made the Constitution law. However, without the support of the largest states, New York and Virginia, the new government could not succeed. In Virginia, Patrick Henry claimed the Constitution did not place enough limits on government power. Still, Virginia did ratify the document after promises that there would be a Bill of Rights amendment, something added to a document. This promise was met in 1791. In July 1788, New York ratified the Constitution, followed by North Carolina in November 1789 and Rhode Island in May of 1790. And there you have the 13 states all ratifying the Constitution, eventually with Rhode Island being the last. Question 12. What promise was made to Patrick Henry and Virginia to convince the state to ratify the Constitution? A promise was made that there would be a Bill of Rights added to the document, and that Bill of Rights would be our first 10 amendments to the Constitution, called the Bill of Rights. Well, thank you so much for watching. Need our ratification? Great. Right after we get the Bill of Rights. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.